U.S. has been in possession of alien reproduction vehicles, ARVs, for many decades, according to Mark McClandish, an aerospace designer. This is a fascinating story and possibly a very important one. So let's get into it. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe. Find me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. And please comment on the story as I'm going through it. Okay, so the Mark McClandish story is very interesting, and he has various sources that have supplemented his research and who have confirmed things that he has said. Others have come forward as well talking about the alien reproduction vehicle. What is the alien reproduction vehicle? Well, that is the idea that we have a reverse engineered alien technology and been able to produce our own UFO. Mark McClandish had a friend that wandered into the wrong briefing and was somehow given privy to this fascinating information. He saw so much that he was able to give Mark sketches, or he was able to allow Mark to sketch the ARV, and it took a process of a few years before they had worked out the mechanics of how this thing worked and made a really wonderful cross-section of the ARV. And, obviously Mark's skills in aerospace design came in very handy. And Mark was able to, over the years, get other people to corroborate elements of this story, people who had seen similar things. Mark isn't the only person that's talked about ARVs, but he is the only one that I know of who's been able to actually develop a compelling schematic of how these things work. So go check out those videos and see what you think about that research. I think that is very compelling personally. But what really interests me about this story is how long Mark believes we have had this technology. So here he is talking about that.
He described the vehicle that they saw as looking like it had been around for a long time. Chips in the paint, fingerprints, greasy handprints and that kind of stuff. The material around where the Zeus fasteners brought the panels together, all chipped and scratched and stuff like it'd been around for a long time. When I talked in 1991 or 92 to Kent Sullen, he clarified that he'd seen this thing in 1973, which was, 15 years or something earlier than that. And then the photographs from Wendell Stevens showed that this thing may have been operational as early as, June or July of 1966. So it certainly supported the idea that this thing had been around for quite a while, maybe even earlier than that. When you look at some of the photography of UFOs, going all the way back to some of the earliest photography we know of, McMinnville, Oregon, for example, you see the same general layout, you see the same general configuration, the flat bottom, the sloping sides, a little dome in the middle, sometimes pointy, sometimes almost like the top end of a cylinder that's been chopped off, sometimes a perfectly round dome, sometimes even, like a cone on the top. So it suggests that, there's many different variants of the system, but the overall arrangement of the components is basically the same.
Whoa, isn't that interesting? So according to Mark, we've had these things since the 60s at least. This one particular vehicle was scratched and smeared, and it had obviously been in service, and people seem to believe this thing had been in service since the 1960s. Now, clearly that's after the George Adamski era, so we can't, blame the George Adamski incidents on ARVs, but maybe it's older than the 1960s. Maybe it does go back that far. Who's to say? What does this mean? How does it coincide with the control group and with the larger picture that's out there? I'd love to know. Some people will probably say, well, this is evidence that all the UFOs are ours and that none of it belongs to non-humans. Well, clearly we got this technology from somewhere. So, I don't see how that could be possible. Also, obviously, there are thousands or tens of thousands or millions of people that have interacted with these things. So, yeah, I call BS on that. Also, according to the Roper poll by Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs, it looks like anywhere from 2 to 5% of the global populace are alien abductees or contactees. That's a massive number. That's crazy. But that is where their research took them. So, let's just say that that's true, or at least that there is a massive involvement by the ETs or the non-humans, because, like they could be the subterranean beings. Who knows? Whatever they are, they have a massive involvement in humanity, and countless people have interacted with them. I do not think that the ARVs produced by the government could possibly be responsible for that overwhelming phenomenon. And of course, there's so much evidence besides all of that. I myself saw a UFO a couple of months ago. It made the sign of the cross in the sky. So I don't think that was an ARV. Another question is, well, what about Bob Lazar? How does that coincide with his story? What is up with that? If we have been flying UFOs for decades, then why was he brought in to reverse engineer alien technology? Specifically, he was looking at the power source. So how does that make sense? Well, perhaps he was helping them to develop a better ARV. Maybe they had gotten something to work, but it could be working better. So he was studying the original craft, trying to make whatever they did have even better. And as I've talked about before, it strongly looks like he was working with the beings, although that knowledge was wiped from his mind. He did have one recovered memory from that, from interacting with a being there. Happened, I think, years later. He was walking into a hotel room, and all of a sudden he had this memory that surfaced of him interacting with a being, I believe in the hospital of S4. That is where he was also hypnotized and given a strange pine-scented drink. To me, that seems to signal that something more was going on than he can remember. Perhaps that was some direct or greater involvement with the beings. That's where my mind goes. Some will say that's, MK Ultra, but why would they? I mean, I don't think that makes any sense. We could argue about that, but that's outside the scope of this video. But okay, Jack, you say, well, if we have ARVs, why did we even need to work with the beings? And, why are we reverse engineering alien technology alongside the beings if that's what's going on out at S4 in Area 51 if we've been flying around UFOs all this time? I think that's a great question. That's a wonderful question, and I think that if we can answer that, then we will have made great progress in our understanding of the phenomenon, and specifically the government's involvement with the phenomenon. There do seem to be competing groups in differing factions within the government. You have the My Labs situation, where you actually have the military abducting people. They seem to be abducting people that are already abductees and contactees and interrogating them. And they use very similar techniques and technology to the beings, which is very interesting. But they are interrogating people and trying to find out what the aliens are doing, and specifically what their technology is. People like Stephen Greer have used the My Labs phenomenon to say, hey, it's all the military. There are no beings abducting people. Well, if you study the My Labs, the military is abducting people to find out what the beings are doing and how their technology works. All of this is above my pay grade. I don't understand it. We don't have enough information about it. There do seem to be competing factions and various interests going on, possibly various competing actions from within our own government and also from outside of our own government. Other governments and probably other beings. There's a lot of evidence for us firing on UFOs, possibly bringing UFOs down, and also evidence that UFOs are firing on us. I have made videos about that. So go seek those out and seek out the source information for that. Those videos. But there's a lot going on, and there's also a lot of disinformation out there. So, use your own discernment in choosing what you believe or where you think the facts lie. As always, your mileage may vary, but those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Please smash the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. Please join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. And please, if you enjoy these videos, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. See the first line in the description below, and there's 2 tiers of membership to receive exclusive access in videos. Until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road.